Today we're going to look at the costs of production. So first of all, the short run. So you've often heard me talk about the short run and the long run when we're talking about a firm or an industry. The short run is the period of time in which at least one factor of production is fixed in quantity. So for example, we have a bakery. To increase output, we would increase any of the variable factors. So for example, more workers, but we only have one bakery or premises, meaning that our fixed factor production is going to be my bakery. And if I want to increase output, my variable factor that I can also increase is labour. So the long run then is the period of time long enough for all of the quantities used of the factors of production to be varied. So as the years go by, in our example of the bakery, we open 2 more bakeries in different towns and buy a dozen more ovens. So a really good example of this. So a good example would be the restaurant Chopped. The first premises that they had was on Bagot Street, and when it got really busy, they would increase labour when it got busy and opening hours. But then eventually it got so busy that what they had to do is they had to open more premises. So I suppose the best way, they had to expand by opening more premises. And eventually they became a franchise, and now they have many different locations, and people buy the name of the franchise and have their own then. So the first cost of production that we're going to look at is fixed and variable costs. So the first one's fixed costs, and they are costs that do not change as output changes. And to the right here, I have a little graph that represents fixed costs, so you can see that C is on my y-axis and quantity is on my x-axis. And then you can see here, this is FC and C1. So if we look at the various different quantities that we can have on this, Q1, Q2 or Q3, those costs do not change. So it stays as fixed. So example of fixed costs then are rent or loan for machinery. They're a fixed payment every month, regardless of what output. Even if you actually produce at Q0, which is this here, you still have to pay those fixed costs. So you still have to pay your rent, still have to pay your loan for your machinery. Second type of costs we have to look at are variable costs, and they're costs that change as total output changes. So for example, raw materials, electricity or wages. So if we look here again at this point here, we have 0 quantity produced, which means we have 0 fixed costs, because we wouldn't have the need for raw materials, we would be using electricity, we would have no wages. But if we say we go to Q1 here, then we see that we start to get an increase in costs. So we start to see Q1, if we increase production to Q2, again we have a further increase in costs because of the increase in the need for raw materials or electricity or wages and so on. And the same if we go up to Q3. So the next thing we need to do is we need to look at how to combine these fixed and total costs and variable costs and what they look like then on a diagram. So the total cost is the sum of the fixed and the variable cost. So when we look at how to draw total costs or represent total costs on a cost quantity graph, well, first of all, we remember that at quantity 0, which is here, we will still have the fixed cost. So for example, let's say our fixed cost is at C1. We would start our graph there, and then it would just be a slanted line the whole way up to whatever quantity, and that's our total cost graph. And that represents our variable costs and our fixed costs. So at Q is equal to 0, we still have this cost here, C1. And then we see that as we increase that to Q1, Q2, we see that our costs begin to increase further. and that total, our change in total cost will be our change in variable costs there. Finally, marginal cost is the change in total cost as a result of the production of one extra unit of output. So we're just going to go through an example now. Okay, so we are just going to take a very rough example, all things being equal, so we're not going to go too much into detail about how many hours they're spending in the bakery or anything like that. So we're saying that there's €10 for flour, €5 for electricity for oven, €3 for rent, and €15 for other ingredients. Okay, so when we look at this, if we make no cakes, our fixed cost is that rent, and that's going to be €3. So we still have to pay €3. We won't have a variable cost. Our total cost will be €3. Our marginal cost we won't have, because we're talking between the difference. Marginal cost is the difference between 0 cakes and 1 cake, and our average cost per cake then is 0. Okay, and our average cost is our total cost divided by the quantity of cakes made, and in this case our quantity is 0. Okay, so let's see if we make 1 cake. Well, for 1 cake again, our fixed cost is going to be €3, and realistically, no matter how many cakes, if I make 2 or 3, that €3 is going to stay the same for our fixed cost. Now our variable cost is going to be €5. That's for my oven. We have €10 for the bag of flour, because remember, even if I just want to make 1 cake, I'm going to have to buy a full bag of flour. And then I also have my €15 for other ingredients, and that's going to cost me €30 altogether. So my total cost is €33 to make 1 cake. My marginal cost, obviously it has changed to €33, and my average cost then is 33 divided by 1, which is going to be €33, which seems really expensive for a cake, and it is, and that's why they often make more than just 1. So let's see what happens then when we increase to 2. So let's say we know in a €10 bag of flour, massive, let's say that's a 5 kg bag of flour, we're not going to need, our variable costs won't change. So in this case we might have, because we're making 2 cakes, we might have to double our electricity for the oven. So let's say we say €5 is still for, sorry, we'll say it's €10 for the ovens now. Okay, and we are going to say then it is still 15 for the ingredients, because we have to buy loads of ingredients, and we still have the €10 for the bag of flour, so that's now gone to 35. So we have now an increase to 38. Now my marginal cost, that has increased by €5, and that's just, again, if you look here, it's the change from 33 to 38, so that's all I did there to get this €5. And then my total cost is €38, or my average cost, divide by 2, and that's going to give me €19 per cake. So we can see that that has dropped. Now I want you to have a go at doing the how many it would cost for 3 cakes. So let's say this is actually €5 for electricity for oven for half an hour. Okay, so 30 minutes. And each cake, the oven's not big enough to fit all the cakes at once, so each cake takes 30 minutes. So in this case, we are going to have, my variable cost is going to be 15. Go ahead and do, sorry, my variable cost for the oven is going to be 15. So go ahead and do that now. Press pause on the video and then come back and see how you get on. Okay, so we have 15. We still have the 15 for ingredients because we bought too much, and we still have the €10 for the massive bag of flour. We'll say that's a 5 kg bag of flour. Okay, that's now going to give me 40. So my variable cost is increased again. My total cost now is €43. And my marginal cost, again, just to show you, marginal cost is the 43 minus the 38. So we're working between these two here. And that's going to give me, it's gone up by a €5 again. Okay. And then what we see here is that we have our total cost, which is €43, divided by 3 this time. So that's going to give me 1, 4, and I'd say it's a bit hard. So it's about €14.3 per cake. So you can see as we increase the quantity, we will see a drop in our average cost as we increase that quantity each time. Okay, so say for example, the maximum amount of cakes that could be used with this bag of flour and these ingredients was 10, okay? And so our variable cost, our fixed cost is the same, €3 rent. We said that for every cake takes 30 minutes to bake, and it's €5 per half hour for electricity. So now we have €50 in electricity, so that's just 5 by 10. And then we have to add on to that the €10 bag of flour plus the 15 for ingredients, and I'm going to get 75 there. So now my total cost is €78, and that's just got by 75 plus 3. And then I have my marginal cost. So from the 9th cake, well, I would say the 9th cake, so we had 78 as this cake. The 9th cake would have only cost, or 9 cakes would have only cost 73 to make, because remember, every time our change in marginal cost was just the €5 extra for electricity, so that should still stay at €5. That's not always the case, because obviously if we talked about labour here, or maybe other ingredients, that would increase as well. So €5, and now we have the average cost is 78 divided by 10, and that gives us €7.80. So why am I going this far? Well, let's say for the 11th cake, then we need to buy a new bag of flour. So we now have to double all of these costs here. Let's say we have to, for 11 cakes, we know that's going to cost €55 in electricity, because we add another 5 on. And we now need 2 bags of flour, so that's going to cost me 20. We also are going to need double the ingredients, so that's going to be, sorry, let's say for the 11th cake, we don't buy another €15 worth of ingredients. Let's say we only buy another €4 worth of ingredients. So we have the 15 plus the 4, because we only want to make 11 cakes, and we're going to get 70, 80, 90, 94 there. So our total cost then is going to be 97. And 97 minus our marginal cost is the change in total cost. So that's 97 minus 78. And that's now gone up. So 97 minus 78 is 19. The marginal cost is €19 of making this extra cake. And the average cost then 97 divided by 11 is €8.81. So we can see now average cost is starting to increase again, and that is because the production of an extra cake, which required an extra bag of flour, these other ingredients were small ingredients that I was able to just spend €4 on. So the €15 was for the 10 cakes, that normally the cost of the 10 cakes for other ingredients, and we were able to get some smaller ingredients for €4 just to make the 11th. So we see that we have almost €1.01 of an increase in average cost. So it would be much better off for us to just stop at the 10. That would us be working at our most efficient and at the lowest average cost.